There is something strangely emotional about a wooden racket. Even if you've never played with one, you can feel the nostalgia embedded inside it. You can sense a kind of simplicity, a kind of purity, a kind of honesty that modern tennis, with its explosive power and technology, sometimes hides beneath layers of graphite and carbon fiber. Wooden rackets are not just relics. They are symbols, mirrors, reminders of who we were as players, and who we sometimes wish we still were. When you hold a wooden racket, everything slows down. The world becomes quieter. The sensations become sharper. The game becomes less about domination and more about intention. A wooden racket demands precision, not force. Feel, not violence. Rhythm, not aggression. And in that difference lies a psychological truth worth exploring. Because the way we react to wooden rackets reveals how we relate to ourselves, our expectations, our identity, and even our emotional history with the sport. Let's start with the most undeniable truth. Wooden rackets expose you. They reveal everything about your technique, your timing, your footwork, your balance, your discipline, your emotional patience. Modern rackets forgive mistakes. Wooden rackets make you feel them. In a world where technology constantly tries to make us feel stronger, more powerful, and more capable, a wooden racket brings you face to face with your limitations. And that can be either humbling or beautiful, or both. For many players, hitting with a wooden racket brings up an uncomfortable emotional reaction. They feel weak, inadequate, suddenly not good enough. The ball doesn't explode off the strings. The sweet spot is tiny. Shots that feel perfect drift into the net because the racket didn't do the work for you. And so the player begins to question themselves. Why is this so hard? Why can't I control this? Am I worse than I thought? And this is the first psychological layer of wooden rackets. They strip away illusion. Modern rackets can hide technical flaws the way modern life hides emotional ones. We often use tools, distractions, technology, and noise to cover up the things we don't want to face. But when you remove those layers, you are forced to confront what is real. Wooden rackets don't let you pretend. They don't let you escape into power or spin. They don't let you hide behind equipment. They ask you to be truthful. But that truth is not meant to harm you. It's meant to reconnect you with something essential: feel. In tennis, feel is a lost language. It's the language of touch, timing, connection, sensitivity. Wooden rackets speak that language fluently. They invite you to listen, to sense, to stop rushing, to stop forcing, to stop trying to overpower the ball, and instead learn how to work with it. They teach you patience, both physically and emotionally. They force you to face how quickly you become impatient when things feel uncomfortable. And this leads to the second psychological layer. Wooden rackets reveal your relationship with discomfort. Modern life trains us to avoid discomfort at all costs. We want faster solutions, easier tools, stronger equipment. We want to solve problems without facing them. But in tennis, discomfort is a teacher. Wooden rackets remind you of that. They force you to accept imperfection, to tolerate struggle, to slow down enough to feel frustration without escaping it. In that sense, hitting with a wooden racket isn't just a physical experience, it's emotional training. But there is another side to this story. For some players, wooden rackets bring not frustration, but peace, relief, a strange sense of nostalgia blended with rediscovered simplicity. Wooden rackets reconnect these players with the reason they fell in love with tennis in the first place. Not because they wanted to dominate opponents, but because they loved the feeling of the ball, the sound of the strings, the rhythm of the rally. A wooden racket brings you into the present moment more fully because it requires your attention, your presence, your awareness. And in an era defined by distraction, this feels like a kind of meditation. A wooden racket becomes a mindfulness tool disguised as sports equipment. It demands you stay connected to what you are doing. It punishes mindlessness. It rewards attention. And that connection creates joy, not the joy of winning or overpowering, but the joy of participating deeply. And this brings us to the next psychological layer. Wooden rackets reveal the kind of joy you seek. Do you love tennis for the rush of power, the satisfaction of dominating a point, the thrill of an explosive shot? Or do you love the craft, the harmony, the softness, the precision, the mindful flow? Neither answer is wrong. But wooden rackets show you which answer lives inside you. Let's also talk about ego, because wooden rackets confront your ego directly. When you play with modern rackets, you feel strong, capable, powerful. The racket amplifies your identity. You hit harder, you sound louder, you look more impressive. But wooden rackets shrink you. They quiet you. They remind you that underneath equipment, you are just a player with a body and a ball. And if your ego relies heavily on your equipment to feel good about your game, the wooden racket experience can feel like a threat, because it removes the external sources of confidence and asks you to find confidence from somewhere deeper, somewhere internal, somewhere honest. This is why many players avoid wooden rackets, because playing with a wooden racket requires emotional vulnerability. It requires admitting, even quietly to yourself, that you may not be as solid as you appear, that your game has holes, that your confidence is delicate, and that your identity is more fragile than your power suggests. But this discomfort is an invitation, not a judgment. A wooden racket invites you to strip your game and your ego down to its foundations, to rebuild from feel rather than force, to find confidence in your touch rather than your technology, to realize that power means nothing without connection, and connection means everything when power disappears. It becomes a metaphor for life, for the way technology makes things easier while quietly eroding our patience, our presence, our trust in ourselves. Wooden rackets remind us that sometimes the harder way is the way that reconnects you with who you truly are. Now, here is your CTA. If this episode made you think about tennis and yourself in a deeper way, subscribe for more tennis psychology content that goes beyond technique and into the emotional heart of the game. Share this episode with someone who loves tennis history, or someone who constantly talks about rackets, or someone who needs a reminder that the foundations matter more than the frame. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever hit with a wooden racket? What did it make you feel? Frustrated, humbled, peaceful, or nostalgic? Your answer might reveal more about your tennis personality than you expect. And here is your closing message. Life gives us modern tools that make things easier. But sometimes, those tools take us further away from ourselves. Wooden rackets remind us of a truth we often forget. Simplicity reveals who you are. When the world gets quiet, when the equipment gets unforgiving, when the comfort disappears, your real self shows up. Honest, imperfect, human. And maybe the lesson is this. Sometimes the slow, difficult, delicate path is the one that brings you back to the joy you lost along the way.